Hi, I'm Anita from Needles and Hooks, and today I'm going to show you how I'm going to put my months together for the crochet temperature blanket as well as the knit temperature blanket. So I'm going to start with the crochet one first, and I've got my border yarn right here. You can see there's still some left. A pair of scissors and my size I9 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. So we're going to put them together. I'm going to set this down here so it's not in my way. Let me find the end. And I kept my tags on top for it. So it's got, this is the February calendar block, and then the January one is right here. So I want to make sure that my borders on the sides, January is on the left, and then February is on the right. So I'm going to take both of these and I'm going to put wrong sides together as best as I can. And I'm going to flip it over and make sure, and I'm going to try not to rip my tags off because I'm going to keep those on for right now. That way I don't get confused. I'm going to move this down a little bit. I grab my yarn. Okay, so we got it all set up. I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to get a slip knot. Right there. I'm going to go ahead and place that on my hook. I'm going to grab my blanket. Make sure I'm doing this right. Double check, because you don't want to mess it up and then have to start over. Okay. Good. I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to put it in to the close end of the block right here, and then I'm going to attach it to that block over there. And I'm not going to really worry about my ends at the moment. I'm going to try to move them to the back side as best as I can, but I'm not totally worried about it because I can take my crochet hook later and pull them through to the back. So we're just going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through two, and we're going to single crochet these together all the way across. And you're going to try to line them up as best as you can. So we're just going to continue going in between. Make sure you grab both panels and single crochet together. I'm going to try to move my ends to the back side, or attempt it. Oh wait, there's one right there. Let's move that back. Good. I'm going to try to do that with each section. If I can get through here. And it's just going to single crochet across. So I'm at like where the two sections have been put together already on both sides. So I'm going to try to go into this connection here in the front and then into the connection in the back. We're going to try to keep it together as best as we can to line up. And we're just going to continue on across until we're at the end. You're going to make sure you're lining up the seams on the January panel to the seams on the February panel as best as you can. And I'm just gonna like ignore the ends right now because that's taking way too long. And I can't crochet over them because they'll end up being seen on the right side of the work. Okay, we're on our last block now, so we're going to go ahead and go across here, and then we'll finish it up. I'm going to try not to rip my paper over here. Okay, so let's take a look at our seam here. Looks like it worked okay. I've got some ends. I can show you how I can do like a few of them and drag them to the back side. So we're going to grab our scissors and cut our yarn. Wrap it over our hook and pull it through. And that's our January and February calendars put together. There's January and February over here. So I want to like put some of these ends through to the back, and I'll show a few of them, and I'll finish that part at a later date. So I've got one right here, hanging out, getting in the way on the front side of my work. So I'm just going to push my hook through from the back to the front, grab it as best as I can, and then pull it to the back. And then I'll take the tail and pull it through a little more. And I'll show you how to do that one more time. I'm gonna bring my hook up as close to it as possible, right there, and then pull it to the back. And that's done. And I'll continue to do these in between doing other stuff. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to bring up the knit blanket because that one is done differently. Okay, now we've got our knit one here. I've got January right here and February over here, and I still have the tags left on them, and I'm going to keep them on there probably for the duration. I also cut off a long piece of black yarn, the border color yarn. If you chose a different color, use that color for your border for seaming. I also grabbed some stitch markers to hold my pieces together because it is garter stitch. It will stretch, and I don't want to end up with like a chunk of stuff at the end because the work stretched itself out. So I'm going to put them together. I also have my scissors and a yard needle because we need to sew them up. So we're going to move this stuff aside, and I have my top January right here and the top of February right here. So when you gonna put them together, you want to make sure January is on the bottom with the right, you want your right sides facing up first to lay your work out, and then we're going to take February and put it over top of January with right sides together. And I'm going to do that all the way down, or at least move them to the side so I can pin them together as best as I can with my stitch markers. So I'm going to start at each end and make sure I grab both. And then cinch it together. Then I'm going to go grab the bottom and put those together. Line them up if I can get it up here, because this is actually pretty long. It's over 6 feet long. And if I had done 2 border color rows, or excuse me, 4 border color rows in between the days, this blanket would have ended up being 7 feet long or longer. So I'm gonna go ahead and put stitch marker through both of those, hold them together. Then I'm going to fold it in half as best as I can. I really wish I had my bigger table. So I want to pin it somewhere around in here in the center, and I'm going to keep doing that until I feel like it's secure enough. So I'm going to also take this end and go to that stitch marker. Try not to stretch the fabric. And I'm going to put another one right here, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Make sure you're going through both layers. Actually, let me finish this side first. I'll do over here, stitch marker to stitch marker. Grab this one. Put it together. Let me see, do I feel confident enough? No. I'm going to put probably one more in between each of these. So I'm going to go down and do that. And when we seam it up, we'll remove the stitch markers as we go. So that's good. I'm going to take this one, bring it close, place a stitch marker somewhere in the middle of those. And the same thing over here. Stitch marker to stitch marker. Put one right here. And one more down at the bottom. And this is going to be kind of hard to see because it is black yarn. So, okay, now we got everything pinned. I'm just going to let the end dangle off the table. I'm going to grab my yarn needle, find the end. Now you don't want to, if you've not seamed anything before, you don't want to like take off too much yarn. You can always cut and attach new yarn. So I'm going to fold the end in half. I'm going to wiggle it through the eye of my yarn needle and pull it through. And I'm going to start at the first stitch marker, which this is at the top. I'm going to take it out so it's not in my way. Make sure I get the cast on end, the other end attached, and I'm going to pull the yarn through. Until I try not to pull it all the way through, because then you'd have to do it all over again. Got fuzzies. Because these have been hanging out for like 2 months waiting to be attached. Okay. All right. There we go. Now I'm going to double knot it with the other end. And any ends, I'm going to weave the ends in as I go. So I'll have 2 ends. I'm going to tie a double knot. 1, 2. And away we go. And I'm going to go in between, and I know it's hard to see, but if I stretch it a little bit, you see the 2 bump rows right here? I'm going to stitch in between these. Otherwise, I would be here all day, and no one wants that. So I'm going to make sure my tails are over top so my yarn can catch it underneath. even though I didn't catch it on that first one. I'm going to go in between the bumps. Make sure our tails are over top of your yarn needle. We're going to weave our ends in as we go. And make sure that the loop is on the top. I'm going to pull my ends a little bit and I'm going to keep going. Making sure I catch both layers and hide my ends in as I go. Check it. Looks good to me. And you're going to continue on in this manner until you reach the end, removing your stitch markers as you go, trying not to stretch the work. I will meet you at the end when it's all done. As you can see, I just have about 2 inches left to go on this, and I'm going to give you some tips real quick. When you're doing these, make sure you're doing it on a flat surface. You don't want to do something like this in your lap because garter stitch stretches, and also you want to open it up once in a while to make sure that your in-between days are lining up as best as possible. When I started it, I didn't think I needed to do that, and I was like, oh, let me go over here and double check. Because you can tell right here, it's off a little bit. So definitely a flat surface. Do it on a table. Hopefully you've got one that's longer than this one, because that's where the struggle was. So I'm going to close this back up. And we're going to come back over here. I did not have to cut and reattach yarn. This is still the same length of yarn I pulled off. I'm going to go ahead and remove this last stitch marker out of the way. Make sure where I was and make sure the ends line up. So I'm going to continue going and I'll show you how to finish this off. Try to make sure I'm under. Make sure you go through both layers. Hopefully I have enough yarn. I should. And we're getting ready for the last few stitches. Barely gonna make it. I thought I would had enough left over to set aside for like seaming my the crochet blocks together. That will not be the case. So I'm gonna go in through the bind off end and the bind off end over here. Now, seeing as there's two here, I can take my yarn needle off for a minute and I'm gonna double knot these two together. Then I'm going to take them, I'm going to fold them over best I can and put them both ends through my yarn needle because I'm going to weave them in. The second one, get in there. Okay, let me pull one through. Now that'll happen too. You might have to do them one at a time. Pull it through. Okay. So now we've got both ends in our yarn needle. I'm gonna fold this open on the back side, and I'm just gonna weave these through where the stitching is, if you can even see it. Black yarn. Oh, so much fun. All right, I'm just gonna go underneath a few stitches. Make sure I'm not seeing it on the other side. Do a couple more. That should be good. I'm going to pull it through. And I'm going to trim my ends. And then tug it back so it's not warped at the end, and this piece is now done. Completely. If I can get back to the top. It's all stitched together. You really can't see it, sort of, but that's how we're going to do each of the months. And when you get done with the March strip, you're going to place the right side of March down onto the right side of February, and you're going to seam all the way down again, keeping track and looking where your day lines are. See, it's off here. It's off here. It's definitely off there, and then I got it back on track right here. So if anybody has a better way to stitch these two together, please let me know in the comments section below, because this was... I detest hand sewing. I don't like doing it. I tried to avoid it. I wanted to avoid it for this project, but there was no good way to do it. So, yeah. Two pieces are together, and this one took a hot minute to do. It took me over an hour to seam it together. I took breaks in between because it is monotonous, especially with a long strip like this. It just take breaks when you feel like it's like, ugh, I need a break. Go take a break. That's what I did. So both of these are together. And I'm going to bring back my crocheted one. And here we are. Got January and February. Get March done. We'll do the same thing over here with March. And then you're going to set this aside until you get April, May, and June done. And then you're going to take those three. When you piece them together, you'll take and put the wrong sides together and then crochet, single crochet across all of this to attach April, May, and June to January, February, and March. And you will do that for the entire duration until all 12 months are done. So hopefully, let me grab my knit one here. We will all have a finished temperature blanket by the end of this year. Hopefully. If you have any tips or tricks or anything better that I could do to these, please, please, please let me know in the comments section below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.